Recording in progress.
Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear us?
We up?
Your speaker's up.
Yes, but there's an echo. Man, where is it coming from?
We're gonna try to figure out the. Okay, let me see, where is that coming from? Can you mute everyone? Let me see. Must be have to come from here somehow. Is this better?
Appears to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ready to go?
Yes.
All right. All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to meeting number 14 of the Region 6 Steering Committee. My name is Mark Black. We have got a boatload of people online, and one of our commissioners is here with us in the room. That would be John Boudreau from Assumption. So calling the meeting to order, I'm going to turn everything over to Mr. Garden for roll call.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could you mute all your devices? Whoever's on the phone needs to be muted. Okay, so Ascension, David Wheel. Are you with us, David?
Yeah, I'm here. Okay.
Thank you, David. Thank you, I appreciate it. Okay, and John Boudreau. There. Okay, and Andrew Barron.
Present.
Thank you, Andrew. Iberia Parish, Scott Saunier. Scott Saunier. Okay. Iberville, John Clark.
Good morning, Pat. Here.
Good morning. Thank you, John. Jefferson Parish, Michelle Gonzalez. Michelle, are you with us?
This is David Ilgren for Michelle Gonzalez.
Okay, thank you so much. I think she's off today or something. Lafouche, Amanda Voisin, she already indicated to me she wouldn't be able to get on, but is there anybody from Lafouche on? Thank you. City of New Orleans, I know that Theo Sanders has still been working a little bit with them on that. Theo, are you with us? Or anyone from New Orleans? Okay, thank you. Plaquemine, Mike Metcalf.
I'm with you. I'm here.
Thank you, Mike. Point Coupee Parish, Mark Ward.
I'm here. Good morning, everyone.
Thank you, Mark. St. Charles, Earl Mathern.
I'm here. Good morning.
Good morning, thank you. And St. James, Merrill McCary. Merrill, you with us? And at St. John Parish, Renee. Renee, you with us? Thank you, Renee. And St. Martin Parish, Cassie Corville. Casey.
Yep, Casey's here.
Casey, thank you, Casey.
Thank you.
And St. Mary Parish, Tim Mott. Tim. And for Terrebonne, Mark Black.
Here.
And West Baton Rouge Parish, Kevin Durr.
Good morning, Pat.
Good morning. Thank you, Kevin. Okay.
Theo came in.
Who came in? Theo? Theo, have you joined us? Theo Sanders.
Just got in. Yes, good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. Okay, I got you down as present. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum. Only 3 of the 17 members are not present. So that's good participation. Thank you, guys.
Very good, Mr. Gordon. Thank all of you. And I noticed we had a lot of visitors online as well. That's very good. All right, the next item on the agenda is the review and adoption of the May 26th, 2021 meeting minutes. Those were all sent out in advance, were they not, Mr. Gordon?
Yes.
So I'm sure you've all had an opportunity to review the minutes, in which case I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as written.
This is Earl. You got it.
Thank you, Earl. Is there a second?
Kevin Durbin, West Baton Rouge Parish, second.
Thank you, Kevin. Is there any objection to the motion? In hearing none, the minutes are adopted from the May 26th meeting. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is a subcommittee update, the Region 6 Floodplain Managers Subcommittee.
Hey,
Adam?
our next meeting will be next Wednesday, at 9 o'clock. I sent out the information this morning, and so we'll be discussing then. So, thank you.
Yeah, I just want to add a little bit of information to that, is that Terrebonne and Lafourche Parish both received their new preliminary deferred maps. So they've been in, I guess, in limbo with those new maps since 2008. And now they've gotten their new preliminary maps based on the appeals that both Lafourche and Terrebonne had. So they're going to need to be taking some final action on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. All right, the next item on the agenda is an important one. It has to do with governance structure. I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Gordon to lead us through the discussion. Pat?
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. We had our outreach strategy broken down into several phases. We certainly started off the outreach by contacting all 16 parishes through the efforts of the steering committee members. We scheduled meetings through the steering committee members with parish administration. We presented to parish council, stakeholders as directed by parish president and administrations. And we sent talking points out through constant contact, websites, planned social media posting. We also, in phase 2, we submitted all watershed talking points to the 16 official journals of each one of the parishes, and it was printed in the official journals of each one of the parishes, and of course sent out through constant contacts to the government recommendations. Phase 3, we requested the Henry Consulting Group to assist with the outreach efforts to the other nonprofit organizations within Region 6, and I believe they're still working on that.
Do you have an update on that, Phil? I mean, they're still working on it.
Yeah, they're
You
still
know what they've
working
been
on
able
it.
to.
That has to be done by the end of the month. We have to submit our full outreach efforts to OCD. So
Sure.
that'll be part of our final plan.
Well, I mean, with the Henry Consulting Group reaching out to nonprofit organizations within the region, and I'm sure there's a boatload of them. That appears to be a pretty thorough outreach strategy. We covered a lot of bases with this.
I would hope so.
All right. Go ahead, Mr. Gordon.
All righty, and just the meetings that we had with the parish presidents was with Terrebonne, Lafourche, St. John, St. Charles, St. James, Assumption, West Baton Rouge Parish, Iberville, Point-Coupee, Morgan City, Mayor, Orleans, Jefferson, and the presentations that we made were to Terrebonne, Lafourche, St. John, Assumption, and West Baton Rouge. Now, just to let you know, not all the parish presidents and administration wanted us to necessarily go to the parish councils because they felt that it would confuse some of the individuals regarding some of the projects that are being applied for. And so in some cases, we didn't go to the parish council based on the input from the parish president. And in other cases, we weren't able to make schedules with like Iberia or St. Martin or the smaller parishes that had a very minute portion of their parish within Region 6.
And some of that had to do with scheduling as well.
Oh, well, COVID, scheduling was difficult. But I think the word definitely got out there, Mr. Chairman.
I think so.
And these are some of the nonprofits that we had outreach to and met with. We met with BETNEP, Wetlands Discovery Center, Restore Retreat, Chittimacha Native American Organization, Upper Delta Soil and Conservation District, Terrebonne Rotary, Homer Rotary, the Spears Group, Henry Consulting, Option for Independence, Upper Delta Soil and Water Conservation, Coastal Center in Nichols, TIDA, West Ascension Drainage Committee, Homer Thibodeau, MPO, TAC boards, and the talking points were sent to all the levee districts and the soil, water, and conservation groups within Region 6, and of course, Henry Consulting. Okay, go to the next. And some of the key takeaways that we got back was specifically from some of the parishes were equal representation of all parishes. They wanted to make sure that the coalition, when it was formulated, would have equal representation for all parishes involved. And of course, you know, our recommendation is that we have one representative per parish on the coalition. So we believe that's very equal. It's not based on population. Most of the presentations that we gave, most of the individuals were glad that something like this was finally happening and excited to see what comes out of this initiative. Most were happy to work with the watershed groups to help improve. Data-driven decisions should be on drainage instead of political decisions. We heard those comments several times, knowing that the modeling is going to take place and that drainage projects would be based on the data that drives these models and not political decisions. And also concerning looking at affordable housing needs in the region and how watershed efforts should be integrated with these efforts. Some concerns by the limited funding and priorities set out by OCD regarding the impacted parishes and with silting of waterways and damage from agricultural flooding. So I just want to say that not everybody's interpretation of flooding is the same. Some parishes look upon flooding as an agricultural concern. Some look upon it as silting in some of their waterways. Some look upon it as the destruction of their infrastructure with roads eroding because of the high water levels. So there's different, it's not all housing and business that are affected by the flooding. There's other aspects out there of flooding. So we need to reel in all of that in the Watershed Initiative. So based on the extensive outreach campaign and general comments from the public, we do not anticipate any changes to the provisional governance recommendations unless there's anyone on any of the steering committee members that have any changes that they would like to make. And of course, the governance recommendations are the same as were passed. You can go to the next one. Of course, in the January 27th meeting, we passed these governance recommendations, planning development regulations, project implementation. There was a discussion of data and modeling. It was decided that the modeling should be housed at South Central Planning. It was also determined that South Central Planning should continue the administration of the Watershed 6 coalition in the future. And then there was the recommendations of the authorities and what the coalition would have authority to do. And it was very broad as to what the authorities would be. And realize that these recommendations are going to all be submitted to OCD by the end of this month. OCD, Louisiana Watershed Initiative, will take all these recommendations, develop enabling legislation that will be brought before the legislation in 2022. They will be working with all the coalitions, with all the steering committees on the development of this. And after we submit these recommendations, we should be hearing back from the state. Okay, so what we'd like to do is, if there's no comments regarding the governance structure, we'd like to see a recommendation to move forward with Region 6 governance structure that was previously adopted January 27th, 2021.
That was the draft, so to speak, that was adopted. Now we want to finalize that, Mr. Gordon,
Yes.
correct?
Well, it wasn't a draft, it was just preliminary.
Okay, so
Yeah.
now, based on the comments that were received during the outreach, I think.
Also, let me add something.
Sure.
Also, those preliminary recommendations were submitted to the state.
Mhm.
And they have printed those on their website. It's actually part of this presentation is what came off of their website from our recommendations. So the state is good with those recommendations as well. I
Okay.
just want to add that.
Okay. I think one of the things that we had discussed at a previous meeting was that the legislature is going to have to formalize this with some state law that will sort of put its blessing on all these governance structures, which will probably be very similar from region to region. Or at least it'll give us the framework. We may have to work within that framework and make some minor changes, but
I agree with you.
I don't see any major changes taking place. It just depends. These are our recommendations. We made this back in January. I think it would be appropriate today for someone to move that we send these preliminary recommendations to the LWI, Office of Community Development in Baton Rouge, as coming from this steering committee. So I'll entertain such a motion.
Mike Metcalf, so move.
Thank you, Mike. Is there a second for this?
Is Earl second?
Thank you, Earl. I want to point out to you that this is the major work we wanted to accomplish today is recommending the final governance structure and sending this on to OCD. So with that in mind, this would be the opportunity for anybody to offer any recommendations, comments, objections. Without hearing no objections, then the motion to approve and send on to OCD is approved by the steering committee. Thank you very much. Mr. Gordon?
Okay. I think Nicolette is on the conference as well. Nicolette, do you have anything that you want to add to this governance structure?
Do you have any questions for me? I'm here if there are any questions I could speak to, kind of the next steps if you'd like me to.
No questions.
Well, I do, Nicolette. This is Mark. Sure. I do have a question. You want to get this into the legislature, into the process for the session beginning in what, April of 2022?
23.
Yes, we're
Or 2023.
2022. So we're trying to get, we're hoping to receive all of the region's recommendations by the end of this month or early July. And then the plan is to present these recommendations to the Watershed Council at their August 5th meeting, which will be in Baton Rouge. We do intend for all of the regional watershed coordinators to present to the council. Once the council adopts a decision related to the receipt and approval of the regional recommendations, the state agency partners will be coordinating with governor's office, the administration, to assemble legislation that also aligns with state level legislation to formalize the Council on Watershed Management, or give the Council on Watershed Management authorities to oversee the regional process. And so we'll be working with the administration on that. And we assume that the fall will be kind of when drafting the legislation will take place so that it can be introduced by the spring of 2022.
All right, Nicolette, drafting legislation is like making sausage, but I would hope that every regional steering committee at least is kept abreast of the process as it unfolds. And the devil's in the details when you're writing legislation, and we certainly want to have an opportunity to comment on draft legislation before it's submitted. Also to know the committee schedule for that piece of legislation so that we have an opportunity to address the committee if we think it's appropriate. So please keep us all in the loop, and I'm saying keep all the regional steering committees in the loop on this as it progresses. Can you do that for us?
Absolutely. I think we fully agree with that. We want to make sure that you are kept aware of any developments regarding the legislation. We will seek your input and also keep you up to date on, or keep you aware of opportunities to submit comments or to provide further feedback.
Thank you very much, Nicolette. Appreciate that. Any other discussion on what we have just done? John, no comment?
No, I'm, as of you, I'm curious to see how it gets scrambled up.
Right.
I guess my first question is the mechanism that the state is using to communicate with the legislature. I know about the Louisiana committee and its goal self, and I deal with lots of agencies in those groups. I'm just wondering, how is the legislature, have they received anything on this yet? And what are their initial comments on? Because I haven't heard anything from a legislative standpoint.
Yeah, I don't know that they have, but some legislator is going to have to sponsor the bill.
Right.
And I'm sure OCD will find someone appropriate for that, maybe several co-sponsors. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that unfolds.
I hope they get them from North Louisiana, Central.
I hope so. I hope so.
Hope you get them from all over the state.
I hope so. All right. Thank you, John. Mr. Gordon, can we move on to round one applications? Is that you or is that Nicolette?
No, we'll go ahead with this.
All right.
And, you know, the round one applications were submitted to OCD, LWI, and as we all know, there were hundreds of pre-applications that were submitted to the state. Then there was only probably 400 that I think it was down by 500, 400 were requested to submit full applications. And in our region, we only had about 30 applicants that were, I guess, invited to submit a full application. And of those 30, 31 applicants, only 20 projects were submitted. And for round one, region 6. 8 of those applications were deemed ineligible. 5 were deemed incomplete. 3 were funded by round 1 at the state level. Congratulations to them. And 4 were deemed eligible for review at the regional level. Now, interesting enough, 2 of those projects are under $5 million, and 2 of the other projects of the 4 are over $5 million. Really, that's what happened. So initially, we only received 2 projects to review. And once OCD received some input from some of the applicants indicating that they thought they would be able to have certain phases of their project, or not phases so much as just, I guess, projects within the project, if they could be funded. And so OCD came out with some flexibility for the regions, right? Currently, we only have $5 million that we can award, but OCD saw the necessity to create some flexibility in the decision-making on the regional watersheds decisions. So let me just read this. The budget revisions. Applicants for any projects currently considered by the regions, including those over $5 million, can revise their budgets, account for additional fund sources with timeline included, or minor reductions in scope that don't lead to adverse impacts. All changes to the budget must be reviewed by OCD prior to any recommendations. And it's my understanding that all of these budget revisions, that project would have to be able to stand alone. The recommended eligible projects initially was proposed at $5 million. OCD will be forwarding projects with a total project budget over $5 million to the regions. We received that. We received 2 projects that were over the $5 million. So the funding flexibility, allowing all regions to recommend projects with a total amount of $5 million up to $6 million to provide more choice and project options. Example, Region 3 has multiple projects just over $2.5 million. Other regions don't have a project list that adds up to exactly $5 million. Now look, I'm gonna tell you, we need to spend all $6 million if we can. There's no doubt about it. So we're gonna see how we can make that work. So regions could identify matching funds for projects so that the total state allocation is between $5 million and $6 million, but that the total project cost can exceed, does not exceed, no, that project cost can exceed, Mark, $6 million. And then 4, there is a possibility that we could defer our $5 million funding to round 2 for design support. Some regions can elect to defer the use of their $5 million or any remaining balance to design support program for round 2 projects. Of course, I'd recommend against that. We have projects that are eligible, and we should hopefully fund these projects. Also 5, they have, OCD has extended the deadline. The regions can finalize their list by the July council meeting. They can be added to the council agenda. Otherwise, they should submit recommendations by October 1st in anticipation of the November council meeting. Now, I don't know where That didn't make any sense.
August, like if we could adopt to be on the.
Oh, that would be the council, the states. I
Yeah,
got it.
but if we
The
can't make
states.
that agenda, they can push it back to the October deadline for the November meeting.
So the bottom line is that we will need to make a recommendation at the July meeting to OCD on our project recommendations. And now I went through that kind of quickly. I do have Nicolette on the phone. Are there any questions regarding the state's flexibility to the regional steering committee?
I do.
Go for
All right, so this is if we back up and there's 20 projects that we still as a committee don't know what the 20 are, correct?
it. Oh, we do know which 20 are.
So have we provided that to anyone? And what conditions in each applicant, as you and I were discussing earlier, I don't know what my application did. I don't know what criteria did it meet? Is it part of the incomplete? Is it don't know.
Now, the state, I was to understand, was to reach out to all the applicants.
Never had anybody reach out to me.
Nicolette, do you know if that was to be a function that y'all were gonna do?
Yes, all of the applicants received an email as to where the application stands in the process. If you haven't received an email, John, we can look into it, but you should check your inbox.
How long ago this was? When was that?
Whoever is the registered applicant in their email address received information.
How long ago did y'all send it out?
It was sent out within, I think, a couple of days after the awards were announced, so around May 27th or a few days after.
When we're dealing with all the floods and.
Yeah, it went to the registered applicants too, so if Assumption was the registered applicant, if you were on it, you should have got it, otherwise it was going to whoever.
But
I don't
just,
recall it, but
yeah,
anyway.
just to answer your question though, I mean, we have access to the portal and we can go through the application and see how yours scored and what is listed as far as it being incomplete or ineligible.
So that goes back to a previous question in one of the council meetings, is all of the members in our steering committee being provided all of the projects to be able to assess as a council member, and I only have one application, but my point is, I thought in working together that we would be able to see everything and the responsibility of the group, we can then start collaborating on, especially on those bigger regional projects. So we don't know what's there. I don't know what's there. Now, maybe somebody does. I don't know what's there and how much of these applicants were that regional projects and had effects to other parishes and any discussion in what our purpose is for.
I can tell you that only the coordinators have been given access to that portal to look at all the projects. So if there's any questions regarding those projects, we'd be glad to sit down.
Are you
with any
allowed
of
to
the
go
members.
from the portal and send everything to us?
I'm allowed to do a screenshot and send you whatever information you're interested in.
Well, I'm speaking globally, I'm speaking steering committee, and we discussed this before. If we're really gonna discuss this watershed region, I think it's important for everyone to know about everything. I wanna know what's going on in Chunky Parish, even though it's quite a distance from me, but it all comes through me eventually. But it's important for us to know as a steering committee, that whole mechanism if we're gonna do our job. And so, that's kind of what I envision it to be.
Okay, well, I'm saying that we have that ability.
Okay.
Okay, so if you want to sit down and go through that, we'd be glad to go through that. If any other steering committee member is interested in going through all the applications, we can do that.
I agree with that. I was under the impression that we would receive a list of all the projects with the composite scores so that we can get an understanding of what was submitted, what scored well, in what categories, et cetera. And until we have that information, it's very difficult to really even make a decision on other projects.
Pat, this is Kevin Durbin, West Baton Rouge. I'm gonna, I guess, third that idea. I think it's very important as committee members that we know what projects have fallen by the wayside, if you will. If for nothing else, then just to see what other ideas people are coming up with, and those may stimulate some ideas in our areas as well. So I would be very interested in seeing the list of all 20 projects, even the ones that have been deemed ineligible.
Okay,
I think that's a good idea. That full transparency and something like that would be beneficial because something may be able to correct mistakes. If something was ineligible, you know why it's ineligible, so you don't make that mistake again. If something was incomplete, you can see, oh, it was incomplete because we didn't do this, so you won't make that mistake again. That would be good information to have. So that in subsequent rounds,
I think I can get that today.
Yeah, we have that Excel sheet, but it's not like
It's not all of them. It's not all of them.
It's all, it shows where it's deemed ineligible, but it doesn't have what the project description is. It's just what the title is, why it was deemed, what it was funded for under review.
Well, let's see if we can't get some information out. That's fine.
Hey, it's Nicolette. So the state sent all of the scorecards for the eligible projects to all of the coordinators. We also sent project descriptions and a list of all of the eligible projects. We also sent a spreadsheet of the entire list of projects sent to the region and their application status, whether they were incomplete or whether they were deemed ineligible, whether they were sent to the region, whether they were funded. All of that information can be shared with the RSC. So Pat and Adam, if you haven't sent it yet, please. I saw an email from you all where you did send the round one.
I thought so too, but apparently not everybody's getting their emails. So.
Well, I think we only have the scoring from the 4 that were deemed eligible for regional review. We don't have any scoring for the other, I guess, 13 or 14 that were left.
Let me clarify that the ineligible projects were not sent to the scoring committee. So the only projects that were scored were the eligible projects. So you would not see scores.
We get to the breakdown of those 4 later in this PowerPoint now.
So Nicolette.
And I just like to clarify. I just like to clarify really quick that my concern is that the information keeps getting bigger every time we meet or get an email. The initial press release had 2 projects submitted and sent to the region with no other projects apparently applied for. Then I found out it was 3, and today I'm finding out it's 20. So that's just news to me.
It's not 2, it's 4.
Yes, I'm gonna go back. So
let me explain, Renee. So originally it was 2 projects because the other 2 were over 5 million. In order to grant the regions or give the regions flexibility and expand their choices, we sent over the projects that were over 5 million to the regions if for example, we did hear in region 1, for example, that an application or an applicant was able to secure additional funding and so wanted to modify their award request from the grant. So we decided to give all of the regions more flexibility and expand your choices that you have. You can, make the best decision for your region. We wanted to send you those additional projects. So those were sent later, that's right. So now you have 4 projects. I'm not sure where you got the third, but we sent over a project list to Region 6 that initially had 2, and then we revised it with the 2 projects that over 5 million and scored and eligible. Now, what the other lists that we're talking about is just a comprehensive list of all the applications received. The state received 191 full applications. Of those full applications, only 41 were complete and deemed eligible for the program and later scored. But for all of the applications that we received, we provided kind of a breakdown of their application status, whether they were funded through the 60 million, whether they were sent to the regions, or whether they were deemed ineligible and their reasons for being deemed ineligible. So that's what Pat is explaining in that list of 20. So it's breaking down, you know, the application process.
Thank you,
I'll
Nicola. And I definitely understand that. I'm just asking for a little more transparency on the front end instead of, you know, little by little getting more and more information. That's all.
We're doing the best we can. Thanks.
Nicolette, why would a project be deemed ineligible?
So it's the reasons are included in that list. So some projects were deemed ineligible because they didn't have completed H&H model and couldn't prove there was no upstream or downstream impact. Others may not have included certain data with their H&H model, so they couldn't prove no negative impact as well. There are multiple reasons, and they're all included in that list that we provided to the regions.
Good. I'm sure Mr. Gordon is going to share that with members of the steering committee. And it would be just as Renee said, it would be a level of transparency that I think we should have. It'll help us in the future. So to understand a little bit more about the process. All right.
Hey, good morning. Good morning. Good morning. This is State Representative Ken Brass, District 58. I cover St. James, Ascension, and Iberville. If possible, can I get a list of the 2 additional projects that were added? I guess for reason, and we're actually working with a similar situation in Region 7. There was a project in Ascension that was over the 5 million threshold. So we're trying to find some additional funding sources, whether it be the Levy District or the parish or the city of Gonzales. But if you could forward me those 2 additional projects where they're in my district, I can maybe work with those agencies to see if we can find some additional funding of those regards also.
Can you do that, Pat?
Absolutely. And Representative, I'd just like to know, because this was discussed previously, whether or not y'all are getting information on the Watershed program. Have you been informed on this program previously?
Not really. I just kind of did a deep dive on my own. Contacted once I found out that South Central Planning was facilitating for Region 6 and the Baton Rouge Planning Commission for 7. Like so I just kind of voluntarily reached out and trying to do a deeper dive and get more educated on the process and become more involved. But I personally, outside initial intent, wasn't just receiving the information. So it may be good just kind of forward everything to legislators that represent these regions, just so they can be in a loop.
You know, and that's a good point. My personal opinion is that those parishes that are split, that find themselves in say two watersheds end up being almost stepchildren, you know, in either one, and that's unfortunate, but I guess that's the way that everything fell out. So yeah, Mr. Gardner can get that to you. So.
Okay. We will get that to you. Yes.
Hello. I have a question, Pat. I don't know if this is for you or more so Nicolette. on the project phasing. Say, for example, a project is over budgeted and it's phased in to be considered for funding, since it's over the 5 million. Is the project applicant required to provide evidence that the funding for the entire project is secured by the project applicant? And if so, what time frame is for that?
Well, I think the
So,
time frame is 30 days.
So, I can answer that. We really don't want to alter. We don't want projects to alter their scope or phasing, just because it could extend the timeline substantially. The point is for round one is really to get money out as soon as possible so that we can get shovels in the ground and spend on this CDBG grant. That said, that we are thinking that that some applicants may be able to find different or additional sources to leverage with their CDBG funds. And so, but we also want to know kind of what that timeline is. So will we be expecting the applicant to provide that information? And kind of ensure or let us know when those funds will be available. So I can't give you a hard timeline, but I would encourage you to submit questions to the LWI round one, that's ROUND 1 at la.gov. So your specific application question, you should send over to that email, and they can maybe work out the details with you.
Okay. So
Yeah.
it's yes. So the answer is yes, that they are required to show that they secured a source of funds for the other part of the project that's not being funded by CDBG?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Another question. The cost benefit analysis, the benefit cost analysis that's done for the project. If a project is phased in, how does that work with the benefit cost analysis for the overall project? Do they have to do an individual BCA for that phase? Or, I mean, how can you show a benefit for a phase of a project when the benefit was for the overall? How does it work?
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I don't think I don't think OCD is going to allow for projects to kind of change scope through this. So, so I don't think that this would be applicable, but I do think if you talk to OCD about the specific project and get more specific questions answered, submit it to LWI-round 1 at la.gov.
It would seem to me that a project has to be taken in its totality to get an accurate BCA. If you start breaking it down, maybe it gets funded in phases, but you really can't do a BCA on a phase. You got to look at the whole project, and that, to me, that's what makes sense. But if that question goes to Nicolette's office, I'm sure they can provide a more definitive answer. That was just my opinion. Any other discussion or questions about that?
Yes. Just to wrap Ken Brass again, my last question. The two projects that was initially sent over, they're both in my district, the one in Central Parish and the White Castle. I think they both came in a little over 2 million. So are we requiring those projects that's under that $5 million threshold to go and maybe solicit other partners or funding sources, or are they good where they are, being that they're underneath the I guess, the overall cap, initial cap of 5 million?
Well, they should be, where's that list, Pat? They should be good. They're under, so you don't need to get any additional funding for them.
It depends how the committee wants to vote on the project.
But this could be sent to the committee to score these out.
We're gonna get more into.
Yeah, we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, Representative Brand. So, the discussion here is kind of going far ranging, but we need to get back on the agenda. Mr. Gordon, we talked about the statewide update for round one.
Yeah, move on.
Regional project selection discussion. This is where this is going to have to be something.
I'm going to let Nicolette talk about this on round two. We're going to skip this.
We're going to skip round one applications altogether?
No, what was on
It
slide?
was round two.
They should talk about this in round two. Now we're back to round one funding.
This is round one.
So these are the 3 projects that were funded at the state level.
At the state level. All right, everybody can see these. The emergency backup pump for stations in Lafourche, the Renadonda, Catalado, the drainage pump in Ascension Parish in the town of Maragland drainage improvements. Those together do not add up to 5 million, but they were funded by the state. So basically they're off the table in terms of our $5 million for the region, the things that we can allocate. So these have been funded.
This is FYI.
Yeah, just an FYI.
And we
Okay.
should congratulate those.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
On
Yes,
putting
indeed.
together good applications.
They did. And they were funded, and that's
Absolutely.
great, that's great. So now, these are the round one projects under $5 million that we're gonna have to score.
Yes.
Yes, we had formed a committee at one of the last meetings to score that and then bring it back to the full board. The first one is the White Castle Canal Drainage Improvement Project for 2.56 million. The second is the Bayou Lafourche Pump Project, which is actually in Ascension Parish for 2.07 million. So we're still under 5 million with that. We have another, we've got 2 more projects, one in West Ascension Drainage Project for 5.95. And then the Upper Terrebonne Basin Drainage Improvement Project for 7.82. So we're going to have to look at all of those and see if we're going to get $6 million total.
Right.
We're going to get $6 million, so we're going to have to figure out a way to score. The committee, the subcommittee will do that at a subsequent meeting sometime in July, which we'll decide on that date. Work through these projects, see if there may be some. I personally don't want to leave any money on the table, so we'll have to figure out if there are discrete elements that could be funded in some of these projects to equal $6 million total. There may be a way to do that. We're going to have to look at it in great detail. These are the
State scoring.
state scoring for these projects. We're going to look at these. Our subcommittee will look at these and determine which ones we want to fund or which parts of projects we want to fund to eat up all of the $6 million. So
this is the scoring and the ranking from the state of the 4 projects we were given. We were talking about that earlier. This is the breakdown. It was coming later on. So this is the highest ranked in order and the scoring based off of the 5 criteria from the state. So these are the only ones we got access to of what the scores were from the 20 applicants. These are the only ones that were scored that were left.
All right, as doing it as a regional watershed, Now, I'm gonna give an example here. The White Castle Canal project, that may affect the Lake Lorette Basin. So who is looking at it from an engineer standpoint? So I don't even know where that's at, but I know it's right north of Assumption Parish, and we had the runoff from Bayou Pigeon as well as White Castle with this most recent flood. And a lot of discussion was happening while all this was occurring. So who is looking at it as a project for the watershed and any effects downstream, and not just a statement in the applicant that there is no downstream effect?
No adverse impact.
Right.
Well, of course, the modeling hasn't been completed yet.
And that's correct. And I'm not trying to deter and trying to avoid or trying not to benefit them, because it may be a good project. But we need to answer that question: does it have adverse effect on the Lake Lorette Basin or not? And have someone present that to the entire committee so we can start doing what we are functioning.
Where are we going to go ahead?
Mark from Point Capee. So in that state breakdown of how they did the scores, it does talk about the regional multi-jurisdictional risk reduction benefit. I think is one place to look. And I'm with you. I don't know anything about the White Castle Canal drainage project. I'm sure Mr. Clark can speak to that. But I just want to kind of speak to the Upper Terrebonne project. I know it's a big number compared to some of the others, but that really affects, it really is a regional approach for the Upper Terrebonne Basin, which is composed of West Baton Rouge, Iberville, and Point Capee. And unfortunately, we're surrounded by levees on both sides. So all of our water ends up in West Baton Rouge, in Iberville, and then down to Bayou Saul and into Assumption. So this plan we have is a way to maybe slow that water down a little bit, and eventually we would like to get it outside of the basin somehow. So I just want to make sure everybody, Upper Terrebonne Basin, probably a lot of people don't know what that is, or Upper Delta. It's three parishes that are working on this project to try and help relieve pressure on everybody. And just want to make sure that everyone knows that. And if there's any questions for the subcommittee on what Upper Terrebonne project is or Upper Delta, please let me know, and I'm more than happy to try to explain as best I can.
And that's what I want to know. And I think that's how the point of the steering committee is. I hate to get into presentation because you're going to hire the best presenter you can, but I want to know from a local person who had just got out of the floodlight a couple of weeks ago, and some of the results of that, how these projects in the future will affect future year events. And so I'm looking at it from an emergency responder right now, but I'm interested. I want to know how this is going to fix the future, and with just these general words, I have no idea.
Yeah, should not the modeling take that into consideration?
Oh,
yeah, we don't have the benefit
Absolutely. That's what I was saying.
the
modeling.
completion of the modeling.
Yeah, we don't know what type of adverse impact this is going to have.
I mean, the fact that one of these projects benefits 10 most impacted and distressed parishes, to me, seems pretty significant.
But that's been the problem all along, is that we allow what is ever submitted on the application to dictate the future of how the drainage is going to work. And I mean, how do we know that it's not going to have an impact on downstream or upstream for that matter? Only the modeling would tell you.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't disagree with John at all.
It's a good point. Thank you, John. So at this point, we're not making a decision on these projects today. The subcommittee has to meet before our meeting on July 28th to make its recommendations. And as you see here on the slide, we're going to make a selection based on effectiveness of minimizing risk, which should have something to do with the modeling, project cost and implementation, and social benefits. All right, the scoring subcommittee, and those people are, John Boudreau, Amanda Voisin, Michelle, what's Michelle's wife? Gonzalez, Kevin Durbin, and myself need to meet sometime in July, and a date has been proposed. Perhaps July 14th would give us enough time before the July 28th meeting to, if that's acceptable to everybody.
And what we'd like to do is have everyone meet in person.
Yes.
Like we did for the governance, because that works so much better. It's so difficult to do things over Zoom. If we can get everybody in one room, Adam can get on the portal, we can look at the full applications of all four of these projects. And so I think it'd be very beneficial if we could all meet together.
I would agree, and I think it would be it's going to be a very interesting, if not
and it's open to the
contentious
public.
meeting.
It's open to the public. Any
public.
other members can come.
Yeah.
The public can come. Nicolette, you're invited if you'd like to come. So that's going to be open to the public.
All right.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, as a member of the scoring committee, I'm going to be out quite a bit in July for vacation and whatnot. I do want to meet with you guys, and I do want to participate. I have a couple of requests. If we can move that meeting up a week to the week of July the 5th, but even if we move it up a week, I would still have to meet virtually. That's just going to be an easier week for me. Unless there's any objections from the scoring committee members, I would ask that we please move that scoring meeting up to the week of July 5th, and that we offer virtual options as well.
It's too close to the 4th, though.
That's going to be, that's going to be a little problematic, Kevin.
Yeah.
How about after the meeting, we'll send like a doodle poll out with some times for those people, like some dates.
We could push it back, but if we push it back, say to July 21st, that only gives us a week before the meeting.
I mean, the 5th is being observed for
yeah.
July 4th.
Wait, you said the week of, so I'm assuming you talk about the 7th.
I've got stuff with the Corps of Engineers potentially got to do that week.
I cannot meet at all the week of July 12th, and I really want to be a part of the scoring process. So we just need to avoid that week if possible, please.
What about the next week?
The week of the next
Yes,
week.
I can meet on the 20th or 21st or 22nd. I would still like to have a virtual option if possible, but yeah, that's a better week for me.
Oh no! Okay. If we change this, you're gonna have to come.
Yeah.
All right.
You're gonna have to teleport me.
So we're talking about right now. Looks like the 21st of July for that meeting.
Yes.
Unless something drastic happens, and Mr. Gard's going to send out a meeting invite for that. It will be here at South Central Planning and Development Commission. Kevin Belanger has graciously offered to provide steak lunches for everybody. So
I hope he's on.
no. So all right, we've got that meeting date for the committee, for the subcommittee. Of course, it's a public meeting. Everybody is invited if they want to, and we'll have the Zoom option as well for those that can't be here. Ask you because it's a subcommittee meeting to allow the subcommittee to do its work. The guests, visitors, whoever, other members of the steering committee will have an opportunity for input at some point, but the subcommittee's got a lot of work to do.
Absolutely.
Hey, Pat.
Yes.
Can I get a list of who's on the subcommittee, and also when was the subcommittee formed? And why we didn't get a chance to decide if we can be on the subcommittee or not?
That was decided by the chairman.
Yeah, it was at the March, the April meeting. we went over the scoring criteria.
Okay. Can we get a list of who's on it?
Sure. Yeah, I'll give it to you right now. It's Amanda Voisin, LaFouche, Michelle Gonzalez in Jefferson, John Boudreaux in Assumption, Kevin Durbin in West Baton Rouge, and me representing Terrible.
And let me just reemphasize, reiterate that anyone can come to this meeting. This is not a closed door steering committee meeting. This is open to all steering committee members. We're just trying to have it where everyone can meet in person. And we felt that getting 5 or 6 members in one room would be much easier to go through the scoring selection than trying to do this over Zoom.
And the other thing is, it is the committee to try to bring a recommendation to the
full board. Correct.
Which also is just making a recommendation to OCD.
That's right.
Okay?
But,
so all of this is all just recommendations.
The entire steering committee will have an effect at the end.
Yes.
As a steering committee member that's not on this subcommittee.
That's correct.
So absolutely, it is that, but it's the subcommittee to try to narrow it down with a recommendation to present to everyone.
And at the meeting of July, there'll be justification for the scoring.
That's
okay?
right.
It's not going to be just, well, this is what we selected.
There'll be a report by the subcommittee to the full steering committee, opportunity for questions, and then at some point, the steering committee can vote on those recommendations.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I have one concern. This Rep. Tim Brass. I didn't hear anybody that's on the subcommittee from the rural parish area, like from St. John, St. Charles, Ascension, or Iberville. So I'm not sure if someone could be added.
West Baton Rouge has a member.
Yeah, I think we left it open to anybody, and these are the people that indicated they wanted to be on the subcommittee. At that meeting in March, it doesn't make any difference to me, but, it's got to be a committee that can't be too large, subcommittee that can't be too large.
Yeah,
So,
I understand that it's too large, but I think we need to have full representation just with the names of locations of the individuals you called off. Like I said, I didn't hear of anybody from the rural parish.
Well, yes, I understand that, but the subcommittee has got to look at, is not adding projects. We have to deal with the projects that are on the table right now.
Yeah, I understand that.
So I don't think there's any built-in prejudice against one project or another. I mean, we got a certain amount of money to spend, and we certainly don't want to leave any money on the table. We want to make sure we can stretch that money as far as possible. So I don't think we're underrepresented, given that it's a 5-member subcommittee rather. And the full steering committee with representatives from all 16 parishes plus BETNEP will have an opportunity to vote on these and discuss it further at our July 28th meeting. And by the way, sir, you're certainly welcome to attend.
Absolutely.
Yeah, my plans to attend about this. I know how subcommittees and recommendation work. Just from my experience, a lot of times the committee that's making recommendations that ultimately goes through. So I just want to make sure that we have some full representation of the entire region on that initial subcommittee.
What's the date? What's the meeting?
Well, yeah, the only way to do that would be to have a subcommittee of 16 or 17 members, and I don't know that would be the most optimal way to proceed at this point. Again, and I can assure you that the full steering committee will ask questions about whatever the subcommittee recommends. I do not feel that we get good participation from every member of the steering committee. So I think we're heading in the right direction with this. Again, Mr. Bryant, please come to the subcommittee meeting on the 21st, if that's when we have it. And, you'll have an opportunity to talk.
Pat, you said the meeting's the 21st?
Tentatively.
There'll be an invite that Mr. Gardner is going to send out, or Adam, whoever. And hopefully we can finalize it. But if you have any problems with that date, we need to know it now so we can come up with an alternative. I mean, we do have some flexibility here. It's just that 1 week is off the table for one member of the subcommittee. So we're trying to accommodate everybody. But again, we can't do the subcommittee meeting the day before the steering committee. We're going to need some time to work through all of this.
And as a subcommittee member, let's do the 21st. And I'll throw it out to the other subcommittee, so before we leave here today, we know the subcommittee meeting is on the 21st.
That's what I thought. I thought I was going to send out an invite for the 21st.
Yeah.
That's what I was doing.
Yeah.
So with the other
That was my
subcommittee members that's on the call now, the 21st is the day.
Works for me.
Correct. Okay, can we move on?
Yes, sir. What's the next item, Mr. Gardner? What do we have?
Okay, the round 2, next steps. This is where it gets really interesting. And we skipped over a slide because I didn't want to steal Nicolette's thunder. So she's on, and I'm gonna let her explain the round 2 funding.
You're on, Nicolette.
All right, thank you, Pat. Thanks, Mark. All right, I hear a little bit of an echo. Thank you. So you can go to the next slide.
Well, let me go back.
Go back.
Yeah. These.
All right, so so learned a lot through the round 1 process. And one of the major findings that we found was that, round 1 was competitive, and we learned that a competitive process doesn't necessarily help fund good projects in rural and small areas that need extra design support and extra capacity to do some of the technical analysis required of some of these projects. So learning from that, and I'm kind of generalizing, but learning from that, the state is proposing to open up round 2 a little bit earlier than anticipated. So this would be not the full round 2 funds, it would be a portion of the round 2 funds. And it would be allocated toward a program that we're calling a design support pilot program. So this would be non-competitive, and building off of the momentum from some of the projects submitted with round 1 that were not funded, the state is proposing a program that would provide technical assistance to applicants to further develop their projects and fund the projects. So that the grant award wouldn't just cover the technical assistance, it would actually fund the projects, but it would include technical assistance. And you can go to the next slide. And so this kind of explains why do this. And again, building off of the momentum of round 1, we saw a lot of really good projects submitted, but like I said before, many show that they didn't have the technical capacity to fully assess and evaluate the project's impacts. So address urgent need for buyouts. We did get some buyout applications. So that's another goal of this program. Support small towns and parishes. We did notice that it was overall small towns and parishes that did show show this need for further technical support, and we couldn't provide it in a competitive program. And then finally, encourage collaboration and not competition. So the state is hoping to get more projects funded and built sooner, and ensure that there's kind of more, I guess, geographically equitable manner. So in some, a lot of big projects and I see you, Mart. A lot of the big projects are in cities and municipalities that have the resources. So we want to make sure that we're building flood risk reduction projects in smaller towns and rural areas, and using this funding to those areas that don't necessarily get that funding in a competitive environment. So that's all.
I'm trying to formulate a question about this. Is it just for buyouts?
No.
Or is it, is it, you talk about it's going to support design, but it's also going to do construction as well. How is that a pilot program? What's the pilot program aspect of it, Nicolette, as compared to a round 2 project?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I guess I should clarify that so buyouts, the state identified funding for through the state allotment, the state programs and projects allotment. So the round 2 will likely be more geared toward flood risk reduction projects that are not buyouts. And then the reason it's the pilot is because this kind of collaboration in non-competitive program, I guess we haven't done before. So we are piloting it. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's small in scale. We hope to fund projects, but this is something that we haven't done. So we are planning to see how it works through this pilot.
Okay, so the collaboration is going to be basically between the state and the local applicants, and not necessarily between applicants themselves who may be in different parishes or different municipalities. Is that correct?
So yeah, the support will be provided by the state. We also hope that the regional staff would be participate in this process too, as the regional staff will likely be part of the coalition, and some regions are recommending that the coalitions do provide technical assistance on project design. So this would be a good opportunity to kind of build that capacity as well. So yeah, it will be a coordination among the applicant, state partners, and regional staff.
Okay.
All right, so my question is, are we getting into hazard mitigation and using some of this fund to leverage against the 25% match is what's going on here?
That's always been the case.
But is that what the discussion is with the state applicants? Because I believe that's where all the applicants go south through hazard mitigation for elevation buyouts. So is this something that they are trying to collaborate to use both programs to fund these projects?
So I'm not quite sure I understand your question, but we do have, LWI does have another separate for HMGP match where we are planning to use this CDBG funds to provide the match for some of those HMGP projects. But that's separate. That's not related to round two design support.
All right, so let's cut through, what is it that you just said that you're gonna do differently from round one? What is it?
Not competitive.
Right, but what is it? What is the expectation of what was just said?
It's not competitive. You'll work with the applicants of round
All right,
one
so
in trying to get them into the funding cycle. So they're going to work with
who?
Well, the idea is, it appears to me in this pilot program is that it would apply to applicants who don't have the needed capacity to pull the project off. So they get with the state, they collaborate, and that could happen.
especially for the projects that are incomplete.
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously some parishes are in better shape in terms of capacity than others. I mean, that's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. It has it's a function of many different things, but that seems to be where this pilot program is headed, is to help build some capacity in some of these areas that are needed.
Hey, Mark, I just want to say, as a small parish, I think this is a great step forward. You know, we didn't submit in round one, although we had an eligible project in the pre-application phase, because we didn't really have the capacity to put together, you know, the highly complex and technical information for the BCA, et cetera. So I think, you know, I'm interested to see how this plays out. But this is a great step forward. Thank you, Nicolette.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how this plays out.
Okay, and that's my question. I'm still confused, and I'm on the same side as in a rural parish. We know that we don't have the capacity. I think I did a fair job, but I'll admit that I'm not an engineer and so forth, and that we probably could have used that type of support.
You know, after the meeting, we're going to look up your project and see if it was incomplete or ineligible. If it's incomplete, it's very possible that this could assist with that assumption.
Okay.
Nicolette, so will there be any construction dollars for round two, or is it only for this process?
Yeah, I said before, this is not these funds are not just for technical assistance. These are project funds, but it's a non-competitive program, so technical assistance to support the design of the project will be provided, but this will fund the full project.
So how when round two comes open, we submit, I guess, another like pre-application, and then there's a ability to contract with a firm. I guess that's my confusion, is how do we procure a consultant prior to any dollars being allocated?
Yeah, you're getting ahead of us.
Sorry.
So we just are introducing kind of this new program. We still have to work out the details, and we'll provide all of the application details to you as soon as they're finalized.
Okay. Any other questions for Nicolette? Hearing none, I want to thank Nicolette. Thank Nicolette for putting up with with our steering committee. You're doing a good job. All right, next item on the agenda, if there's no further discussion on round two, then do we have any comments from members of the steering committee? Hearing none. John, no comment?
No,
Okay.
I'll tell no.
All right. Then we'll go to close out. Are there any comments from the public?
Yeah, I have a comment. My name's Seneca Tucson. I'm with Later Engineering. And I just had a general question. We're some of us are still trying to get our heads around this this additional flexibility for the increasing the projects. And my hopes are, we don't lose sight of the intent of round one, and that I think as we sat with our clients and looked at some of the projects, of course we've all got hundreds of projects that are upwards of $5 million, but we intentionally went in as we looked at some of our problem areas and what projects that are within this budget that'll have the most impact in some of these areas. And so, we stayed within the confines of the program that was presented to us. And so our hope is that, that we all understand that the changes that are being made as we go through this final selection and steering committee. So regardless, because that can help us in the next rounds, because there are two more rounds with double the budget of round one. So that I just hope we don't lose the overall intent of round one. To get some of these smaller projects going that'll have immediate impact to some of these rural and smaller communities. So that's kind of just my comment on this, and I hope you guys could share information with us. With the parishes and some of us consultants who are, we spent a lot of time putting these packages together. We did Town of Maringouin that was successful in round one with with the state, White Castle. And so we're hoping that, as the more detailed selection evolves with these additional projects that, we have an understanding of hows and whys. So.
Good. May have an opportunity to provide some of that input at the subcommittee meeting if you're here.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just a member of the public, but yeah, I definitely would like to plan to listen in.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Then Mr. Gordon, can you provide us with some key dates coming up?
Well, key date is going to be, of course, July 21st, that we'll have the next meeting to discuss these projects.
That's the subcommittee meeting, yes.
Subcommittee. But the big date is the end of June, getting these recommendations to OCD, the governance recommendations.
End of June, governance, yeah.
Governance recommendations.
And we voted on that.
And we voted. That's going to move forward. Then we need to make a decision for the end of July on the round one recommendations. And, OCD kind of changed things on us a little bit, but they gave us an additional 30 days. So hopefully we can make a decision within that time frame.
And they gave us more money to boot.
And more money, yes.
Excellent.
Good point. Good point.
Okay. As Mr. Gordon mentioned, the subcommittee will meet here on July 21st. We will have a Zoom option in case anybody wants to check in on it that way. The next meeting of the steering committee is July 28th, and we've got decisions to make, recommendations to be made at that time, which will go on to OCD. So, if there are no further comments from anybody.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by John Boudreau. Is there a second?
Second.
That's Earl. You seconded?
Yeah.
Theo, second.
Good. All right. Any objection to the motion to adjourn? Hearing none, I want to thank everybody very much, and we are adjourned as of about 11:34.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.